right when March Madness started. So yeah, it's been a while.
It has been a while since all of us have been in the same room all together. But I promise we're all still here. In fact, there's some days that Austin's going to host and you see me pop up on some pre-recorded pieces, or Mitch hosts and Austin's doing whatever. But we got the whole team. The band's back together. That's what we like to see. All right, so we got a couple things to talk about today, and some stories that we've been seeing a lot about. First of all, the first one I wanted to talk about today was what led our newscast today, and it's this fight over eligibility. Virginia Tech player Bree Warren transferred from, she had been at Texas A&M, then to South Carolina, and then they went through a coaching change, and they said, okay, well, we're going to let you go off the team. So she wanted to transfer to Virginia Tech as she finishes her graduate degree. But the big problem here is it sounds like she got some bad advice from South Carolina, from the academic advisor. Said, hey, it's too late to transfer, or you have to transfer now. There's a lot of legalese in there. But what it comes down to is that the NCAA said, hey, you've burned your eligibility, and you don't have it available anymore. And so now, the NCAA said, nope, sorry, you go away. And so she took her fight to Montgomery County Court, and there is a ruling possibly coming tomorrow about whether or not she's able to resume her career. So before I ask this, so our viewers know, I have a little experience playing college football. Austin, you do as well. So Austin, explain to me I don't want to say your background, but certainly, your experience in, kind of managing your eligibility a little bit, the conversations that go on with advisors, and how closely, none of us played Division I top tier, but I'm just saying, we all had conversations, about what you got to do to maintain your eligibility and things like that. Can you talk us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I had the distinct privilege of playing college football before the NIL era and during it. So I kind of had the best of both worlds. I think now, especially with this situation, you get a lot of that in the NIL era. You're getting people who want to get a 7th, 8th year of eligibility. She's not necessarily the case. It's 4 years at 2 different institutions and maybe a 5th. In my experience, it was very, very, very simple. Every year, and I'm pretty sure every athletic program does this, they have a meeting before the season, before fall camp even starts, and you guys go through an hour-long presentation about, okay, here's what the cans and cannots of college football. You can't take any unnecessary services that wouldn't be provided to you if you weren't a student athlete. You can't profit, at least before NIL, you couldn't profit off your name, image, and likeness. But now you can. So every year it's always having that conversation. And I was also there not only before the NIL era, I got there when COVID hit. So I had my red shirt year and I had a COVID year. So I remember when it was around my junior year, I was ready to graduate. I was ready to leave. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I did all the stuff I needed to do as a football player. I think I'm done. And I thought I was out of eligibility. And my coach just kind of sent me a text like, hey, let's talk about what your next move is. I was like, okay, maybe he has like a job set up for me or something like that.
Right. And
he was just like, you want to play one more year? I was like, I got another year? I thought I used all my eligibility.
Right, yeah.
And he was like, no, you got the COVID year, so you can come back. And he had to do some persuading because I was like, I'm done. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go enter the adult world. And he's like, we're going to pay for your college. I'm like,
It's funny you say that, because one of the first things when I was talking to some people in the newsroom about this is, shouldn't a player know how many years they have left? And it's way more complicated than just, I'm a freshman, a sophomore, junior. You have redshirt years, there for maybe the players who are her age, maybe you still have a COVID year left over. And then also there's rules about, whether, if a coach, if there's a coaching change, schools can let you go. Well, then, okay, do you lose that year of eligibility? And so it's a lot trickier. And also there's medical hardships, which is something I know I went through when I was deciding whether or not to continue my career and others. So it's way more complicated. And I think the crux of this case is the quality of advice that Warren got, or in this case didn't get, from South Carolina, where, there was a coaching change made, and also the legal filings do say that, hey, she didn't get along very well with the coaches on her team to begin with. So she was ready to go, but there was a coaching change, and she was told, well, you do this and this, you graduate. Turns out they didn't give her all the right information on that, then told her, hey, you can't transfer now, you have to sit out a year. So she did that, and in the process burned everything. It just, the quality of advice you get, and the NCAA is almost going, well, hey, that's not our fault. You have to kind of manage it yourself. And I think that's the struggle here. Like you said, you didn't even know you had eligibility.
I didn't, and that's the thing with the NCAA. It's a lot of confusion, and I think that it really defines what's going on in college sports now.
Yeah.
Is there is a lot of confusion when you're talking about NIL and giving players money or eligibility. You have, like, last week, or I think it was a few weeks ago, when former UVA quarterback Chandler Morris was trying to get a 7th year of eligibility. Nowadays, people who need that advice to say, oh, do I have insert amount of years left? They don't even know, because there's so much going on. And then you even have Trinidad Chambliss, who's down at Ole Miss, who said, you know what? You guys told me I don't have any. The NCAA told me I didn't have any eligibility. And he just went to the courts and then he ended up getting more eligibility. So, and that's what she's doing now. Warner is taking it to the courts to try to help her out in her case. So it's really confusing, because even when you're looking for that advice, I feel like the people that you go for advice, they don't even know, because so much is changing day to day.
And I think this is also important, when we're talking about, football and a quarterback, and you mentioned NIL, that is, part of college sports now, love it or hate it, whatever it is. But, in the case of Bree Warren, look, she, for softball, yes, there's pro softball leagues, but for 90% of players, this is it, right? And she's going for her graduate degree. She wants to go about this the right way. And she said, if I got one more year to play, I want to play. And she wants to go out on a good note, where she feels like maybe things didn't finish up the way she would have liked at South Carolina and her other places. She just wants the opportunity to go out there and compete one more year. And I think that's the big thing here, that this isn't a money grab. This isn't like, oh, well, I could always go pro. No, I mean, this is softball. And that's the thing. A lot of other sports that aren't football and basketball, I mean, that. I mean, there's really not many places for these players left to go once they graduate.
Yeah, exactly. And I love how athletes are able to use their eligibility for positivity. I know when we think of NIL, we think a lot of football, of these players that are in college for 7, 8, 9 years. That's because there's a whole lot of money in it for them, which I understand. I don't blame the player for being able to take advantage of that. I think that's the system. The NCAA needs to have rules and regulations in place in order to prevent stuff like that from happening. But until they have something in place like that, I can't get mad at the players, because they're just taking advantage of a system that allows them to do that. In her case, I think that's the complete opposite. Like you just mentioned, there is a professional softball league, but there's not much money in that. And even in softball,
that's a great point.
And even in softball and college softball, there's only maybe $1 million player down in Texas Tech, so it's not like they're just throwing around money. It's not like they're throwing her $500,000 to play softball at Virginia Tech.
Right.
I think, like you said, she's trying to get her graduate's degree, trying to go out on top and be a part of a top-notch program, because Virginia Tech is having a pretty good season right now. And being that she has one more year left, she wants to be a part of that, wants to be able to go out on top, make those memories, and also earn that degree. So I don't blame her for trying especially for something that, look from the outside looking in, doesn't look like it's her fault. She just took advice from a university, from faculty, whoever it may be, and that advice ended up not being what she needed and kind of led her to this situation. So I hope we'll see how things work out, because her hearing is tomorrow.
Yeah. So, they had a hearing on Monday. And then we're expect to get a ruling on the temporary injunction. Here's, I think, one of the biggest complications that the NCAA brought up, is that because they're asking for a temporary injunction, they would have to then have another hearing later. And we're already at this point mid-April. The softball season, if you're making the World Series, goes in June, but so you're only looking at another month. And the question is, if you grant the temporary injunction now, this is what the judge is saying. If you grant the temporary injunction now, does that mean, if you say, oh, we ruled down the line that no, we shouldn't have done that, well, guess what? She already got her year. She already got to go back on the field. So the judge has to take that in consideration. He already mentioned in the court documents from Monday that he had a little bit of hesitation about doing that. So I think that's some of the questions that we have to wait and see. All right, Austin, I did want to show you this, and I'm going to take that graphic off here, but I'm wondering if you heard about this. So we're talking about eligibility and just wanting that chance to play. This was a great story out of Detroit, where a former Eastern, I'm going to roll the video on it, so hopefully you can see it on the screen here in a moment, but this player from Eastern Michigan University didn't get, just once he's been standing outside of the camp and saying, hey, I don't have an agent. I had 25 DBUs, 14 interceptions in my collegiate career. He doesn't have any college eligibility left, but he believes he can play. And look at that. He's showing up with his cleats on and he's ready to go. He said, and the station in Detroit picked up, this is their video. And they said, he said, oh, if I just get that one shot with the Lions to let me walk on the field and show what I can do. And, there are teams that do open tryouts, but I mean, unless you're invited, those open tryouts don't usually lead anywhere. But I think that was kind of a cool story to come out of Michigan. Did you ever get to, now when my career was over, it was more due to medical, so more than anything. But for you, what's that thought process like when you're at the end and you go, gosh, maybe I get a little left in the tank. Maybe I could go for something.
Oh no, I was like the exact opposite. Whenever I think around my junior year of high school, actually no, going into my senior year, and then really solidified it after my sophomore year. I was like, okay, I'm not going pro. I want to be able to play college to get a degree. Yep. So whenever it was time for it to be done, I was like, okay, I'm ready to go. I got my degree. I got I took advantage of every opportunity that was given to me. If the NFL or any other league was there, and if I was good enough to play in those leagues, I would have been okay with that. But I know I tried my best. But I feel like there was a similar story not too long ago, a couple of years ago, of a similar player who did the same thing, who was just sitting out front of an NFL team and just hoping for a tryout. And like you said, it's very, very hard to even get invited to a rookie mini camp. I had a teammate who is from Dan River. I played at Dan River High School. Ended up getting signed. Went to Robert Morris College.
Oh yeah, I know.
Rob Carter Jr. Hopefully we can get him on the show. I've been talking with him.
Yes, please do.
But he ended up going. He got picked up by the Ravens for a rookie mini camp. Was there for a day. And got cut immediately. And then he ended up going up to the CFL, balled out in his rookie year, was all pro, and then now he got signed to the Indianapolis Colts. And for a guy like that who, for every Rob Carter, there are thousands of other kids, other young men who are out here grinding to get these positions. So don't get me wrong, I think that definitely sets him apart because he's literally outside holding up a sign saying, "Hey, I have done this. These are my accomplishments. I'm I think it said a UFL Defensive Player of the Year. Those are pretty big accolades. So whatever you're saying, you're a Defensive Player of the Year of another professional league. I think that should at least get you a chance to the door open, and you get invited to a rookie mini camp and things like that. But it's just so hard, when people look at these athletes and they say, "Oh, I want to make the NFL." That is the 1% of the 1% of college players. So it's always an uphill battle. But to see that, it's a feel good story. You see this kid.
Oh, it totally is. It totally
that's trying to make his dream a reality, and he has no agent. He's representing himself. It's an uphill battle. But you root for the kid because he's trying to achieve his dream.
And that's why I actually do love watching the UFL. Particularly, I love watching the CFL. If you haven't watched a CFL game, let me tell you something. If you go to the CFL, we're talking about our friend Robert Carter here from Dan River, who, by the way, at Robert Morris had one of the best one-handed interceptions. What I'm talking about, where he did this just one-handed, and he's in air and he floats back and goes behind his head. I'll have to find the video.
We'll find it for. And the funny thing is, he broke the internet twice because he had another one like that in the CFL.
You're right.
So he had two. And the funny story about the Robert Morris catch. The reason why he went up, yes, he's an athlete and he has hands. The reason why he went up with one hand is because his left hand was broken.
So that's right.
His left hand was broken. So he had to go with one hand. So he was just it was so impressive. And the fact that I played with him in college. So he started out at UVA Wise with me in Wise County. He was there for 2 years, ended up being named Defensive Back of the Year in the state of Virginia his sophomore year. Then he transferred out of UVA Wise, went to Robert Morris, where he literally broke the internet with that interception. And he just continued to improve and get better and better. And it's just and seeing him make it to the CFL, which is, I think, behind the NFL, is the next best professionally they
and also
play.
tougher on defensive players.
Oh,
if you haven't seen it, the field's wider now. Starting next year, the end zones are going to be like NFL end zones, where it's just 10 yards, but it used to be a 20-yard end zone, and then the goalpost was sitting physically on the goal line, almost like they had back in the 50s and 60s in the NFL. But that meant, like, if you were throwing a corner route, boy, somebody was really throwing a corner route. And the fields, again, wider, and they were a little longer because you had 50-yard lines on each side, then you had a 10-yard gap up to the center line in the middle. So if you could stand out as a cornerback, which, again, they only have 3 downs in the CFL, that meant, they're passing most downs. That means you were on your heels the whole time.
Exactly. And then also, that the receivers, they get a running start.
Yeah, that's the other part. Oh, my gosh.
So they get a running start. So
there's no such thing as illegal motion.
So they're always getting a running start in the CFL. So I look forward to seeing him being able to compete for a roster spot with the Colts. But that just goes to show you, just for every amazing athlete like that, he had to break the internet twice to get noticed by the NFL. And then he got cut by the NFL, went to the CFL, dominated, became a first-team All-Pro in his rookie season, and then he got a chance to come back and earn and try to make a roster spot for the Colts. So
oh my gosh!
For a young man like that to go through that, you have to look at there's thousands of other guys that are coming out of the SEC, the Big Ten, all these other big conferences who were big guys in their division, in their conference, who were making plays. They all want, when you get to these guys who are in Power 4 schools, a lot of them who were starters, they have aspirations of playing at the next level. Oh, yeah. You're competing with thousands of others. So it just makes the journey even harder, which makes us appreciate the guys who are the guys that really got it out the mud, if you will, and who had to really fight through these different grinds and struggles to get to that point. So watching this guy outside of Detroit, and they probably need some cornerback help. I don't know any corners on the roster right now. So you never know. They could use the help.
All right. We're going to take a quick 60-second break. When we do, we're going to set up what we have coming up the rest of this week, some stories that you're going to want to keep your eyes on, including a special guest who's coming to the studio tomorrow to talk about a pretty amazing moment in his career. Stick around. We'll be back after the 60-second timeout. It always helps to turn the microphones on. I've been in this business a long time. It is hard to do when you don't have the microphone. I'm just taking my IFB on because that keeps falling out. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Huddle. Dave Walls, Austin Hicks here. Talking about what we got coming up here on the Huddle over the next few days. And the first thing I wanted to talk about is, as I load up the video for that, a driver from our area. And usually when I'm talking drivers, you know me, I do love a good NASCAR race. But we're not talking about NASCAR. We're talking about drag racing, funny car drag racing, and we mentioned this at 6 o'clock. This is video from Matt Hagan. Now, Matt is a Christiansburg native. He's on the bottom of your screen, and watch the speed of this thing. Takes off the line. Oh my God.
And this one's going down to the wire. Finish line, it's going to be Matt Hagan. What a win, what a weekend for Tony Stewart and team. 387.6, 330 miles an hour. Hagan beats the 389 of Ron Capps. This guy,
Tony Stewart,
can't
NASCAR
do anything
legend,
but
was his
win
boss
around
there,
here.
but Matt Hagan wins the 1,000th funny car race in NHRA history. 330 miles per hour. Mitch Carr, when we were in the studio, had a funny line. He said, and I'll ask him this tomorrow because I'm curious. He said, so at that speed, 330 miles an hour, are you actually driving or are you hanging on? Are you riding the car, or are you just praying that the car's going?
I think you're just along for the ride at that point. I could not imagine going those. The acceleration must be insane inside that car.
Well, Matt is a Hall of Famer already. That was his 56th funny car career win. Again, racing for Tony Stewart, and again, that was the 1,000th race. So a lot of eyes were on that if you're an NHRA fan, and Matt continues to get it done. He's going to join us in studio tomorrow for the Huddle, and I'll record that earlier, and then I will have that for you here tomorrow. Now, also another thing we were talking about, we got the Rail Yard Dogs coming up this week, but I also did want to bring up, we have another hockey team that is playing tomorrow night down in Wytheville, the Blue Ridge Bobcats, and Josh Britz, who's one of our photographers, is a huge fan of the Blue Ridge Bobcats. This is actually his video from earlier in the season, but they open up in the Federal League playoffs tomorrow night, and they've got Port Huron in game 1, and then the games 2 and 3 are on the road. It's a best of 3 series. You make that, you get into the finals, but they've been packing them in. They've been packing them in, though. They've got the Hitachi Energy Center out in Wytheville, and they've been really packing the house here. Crowds of 3,000, close to capacity, getting near 4 grand. And I mean, it's a team that has a very high-powered offense, second in goals in their division, and that should be really exciting. So we've got them tomorrow night, and we hope to have highlights of that tomorrow night at 11. Now, you and I both got to take in the Rail Yard Dogs. Hadn't planned on talking about this, but I figured I'd get your impression of it. Roanoke, we're going to be talking with them tomorrow, and boy, they have looked really good in their opening round series. 13 goals in 2 games. It wasn't even close.
They were on fire. If you were watching this game, you would think that the Birmingham Bulls, who had their number during the regular season, won 4 out of the 5 games in the regular season. You would have thought the teams were reversed. You would have thought the Dogs were the team that won 4 out of 5 because it wasn't close. The offense was dominant. They lived in front of on the Bulls side of the court on the ice all night. They were getting up more shots on goal. It was just dominance from start to beginning. And then just the defense itself. The Bulls could barely even get over to the Dog side of the ring, and that was just a tale of both nights. They're getting hot at the right time and going into the playoffs, and now going into the second round. It's going to be exciting to see this team because, as you know, with most sports, it's whoever gets hot at the right time, and I don't think there's any hotter team in hockey than the Dogs right now.
I totally agree. In fact, you brought up a good point. Austin Raudebusch in Game 2 only had to stop 17 shots. And there weren't any really good quality scoring opportunities, maybe 1 or 2 for Birmingham, but they had 3 shots in the first quarter alone. And that defensive pressure around center ice and the blue line, anytime Birmingham tried to enter into the offensive zone and get something set up, it just got crunched down every time. So they're looking very, very good. And I think the intriguing thing is in the semifinals, they're facing a team that they haven't seen all year. They didn't play him in the regular season in Evansville. So I think that's very it doesn't happen too often, with the exception of maybe, I don't know, the World Series where you face an American League team and a National League team. Mm-hmm. But certainly in sports, usually you have some familiarity, and Roanoke has none. But right now, I think they're more focused on what they're doing over what their opponent is doing.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they should be focusing on. Whenever you can play your game to the best of your abilities, that's when you see these great teams can handle business, especially when you're going up against an opponent that you have no history of, at least during the regular season of playing. You don't really know what to expect. So what do you got to fall back on? Your good old fundamentals. What do we do really well, and how well can we execute our game plan? So going forward, we'll be able to hear from them tomorrow because they'll have their media day tomorrow to kind of talk about how they're going to attack this week. So you guys got to stick around, so we'll have more of that for you tomorrow.
And finally, I hope you stick around on Friday because, we've been having Salem Ridgex games on WZBJ. Well, here on the Big 7, we've got Major League Baseball coming up. The Washington Nationals, we got a whole slate of games coming up with them all throughout the season here on WDBJ7. The Nats are going to be taking on the San Francisco Giants. First pitch is 6:30. And if you're a Nationals fan, or even if you're just a baseball fan, heck, I'm a Phillies fan, but I'll watch free baseball anytime. If you want to see it, we have a list of the games right now in the sports section of WDBJ7.com. You can just search for Washington Nationals, and you'll find the article. So pretty exciting here to have Major League Baseball back on the big stick. And, of course, we got more Ridgeax games coming throughout the year. In fact, we have a 3-game set. It was it 22nd, 23rd, 24th on WCBJ. So lots of live sports are hitting our airwaves, and the feedback's pretty awesome. I don't know. I've heard it. The fans are loving seeing the action so far.
Oh, yeah. Gotta love to watch some baseball. Any sort of sports. Just inject sports into my veins. So whenever we get to have as much sports on WDBJ7 Plus and on air, you know, everybody's loving it. So just come back and join us on Friday.
All right. Now, we're about out of time, but quickly, I wanted to give you a chance to promote the story you're doing tonight about Salem doing some renovations to Salem Stadium and what that means for future events coming up. Can you tell us a little bit?
Oh, yeah. So tonight I'm going to talk about Salem Stadium in Salem, which is known as the City of Champions. It was announced back in 2024 that the Stag Bowl, which is the Division III Football National Championship, is coming back to Salem Stadium, which is amazing news. They were there me growing up. I always remember the national championship being at Salem Stadium. It was there for 25 years, left, came back for the 50th national championship, left again for 2 years, and they are now back at Salem Stadium. But the thing is, they had to make some updates. Their lights that are in the stadium were installed in 1999 and have not been touched since. So the NCAA said, hey, we're going to bring back the Stag Bowl, but in order for us to do that, you guys got to update your lights. So I got a chance to speak with the director of the Salem Stadium and the Civic Center, Salem Civic Center that's across the street. Talk a little bit about what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, and when you guys can expect these new lights.
You know, I know that at Curling Clinic Field where the Ridgeax play, they've had these similar lights put on prior to the season. I got to tell you, it's improved the visibility and the quality of their broadcasts that go out on MILB TV and also the ones you see on ZBJ. It's made a huge impact there, and I know that's going to make a huge impact at that stadium, because even I'll tell you, when you go to shoot, Salem Spartans football games on a Friday night, sometimes, now it's a great stadium, but there are times where sometimes you get into like a little corner or someone throws a go route and go, gosh, it's a little dark over there. And every high school has their issues, but I mean, at a stadium like that where they're bringing in championships, that City of Champions title is something that is a real point of pride for the city, and it's going to be exciting to see what these lights. So I can't wait to see your story tonight.
All right, I'm excited for everybody to see it. So you come and join us at 10 and 11 on WZBJ 24 and WDBJ 7.
And I know you got to get back to work on that.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to wrap it up for tonight on the Hometown Sports Huddle. Again, tomorrow, Matt Hagan, a funny car driver from Christiansburg, is going to be in studio talking about winning that 1,000th NHRA drag car race. So we hope to see you then. Until the next time, for Austin Hicks, I'm Dave Walls. We will see you next time on the Huddle. Goodbye, everybody.